So prepare yourself for this episode because we've got a brand new deck that is just $3. That's right, you heard me right. $3. Okay, it's like $3 and some change, but come on, we'll go over the price at the end, but yeah. This is an extremely budget deck and an extremely fun deck, so now with all that said, let's jump into it. So when selecting a commander for this extreme budget deck, Atali Primal Storm really stood out to me. Atali is a 6/6 Elder Dinosaur that costs 4 red, and it has, whenever it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library, then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana costs. So again, Atali stood out to me for a few reasons. First off, this card has been reprinted quite a bit, so yeah, it's a very budget-friendly card itself. Secondly, when building extreme budget decks like this one, the less colors, the better a lot of the time. So yeah, Atali is only one color, so very doable on a budget like this. On top of that, Atali is quite powerful and can help you utilize your opponent's much more expensive cards. Just one swing could let you cast up to 4 things, which is incredibly impactful, and again, you might hit some massive things off the top of your opponent's libraries and get to do some pretty powerful things that are nowhere near budget. And doesn't it just seem like a fun thing to do where you're playing against your friend's $1,000 deck and you're like, okay, I've got this $3 deck. Let me attack with Atali, and, oh, awesome, thanks for the cards off the top of your libraries, and now I'm gonna beat you with your own cards. So yeah, Atali is a great option for a budget this low. I mean, chances are pretty likely that the first cards that you hit with Atali from your opponent's libraries might even cost more than your entire deck. But speaking of this deck list, if you are interested in picking up this deck, make sure you check out the link in the description. And with the cards in this deck, I'm going to be breaking them down into different tactics to show you how this deck works. So with all that said, let's jump into it. So first up, with this commander, ramping is very important. We're going to want to try to get our commander out as quickly as possible. So yeah, mana rocks like Manalith, Altar of the Pantheon, and Spectral Searchlight can help us do that. Each of them costs 3 and can tap for 1 mana of any color, and Altar of the Pantheon also, affects Devotion, which doesn't really matter for us, and then Spectral Searchlight can also allow us to give any player 1 mana of any color they choose. We probably aren't going to be doing that for the most part. We might politic a little bit with this, but yeah, for the most part, just a mana rock for us. And we've also got some other mana rocks at 3 with Network Terminal, Letter of Acceptance, and Araska Relic. Network Terminal can tap for 1 mana of any color, and by paying 1 and tapping it, we can tap another untapped artifact we control to draw a card, then discard a card. So, ramping and looting, what's not to like about this? And then Letter of Acceptance can tap for 1 mana of any color, we can pay 2 and tap and sacrifice it to draw a card. And then Araska Relic is somewhat similar, it can tap for a color, so we can tap and sacrifice it to gain 3 life and draw a card, but only if we've got the City's Blessing, which in a game like Commander is very easy to get, especially with a commander like Atali that can help us cast a lot of things. Moving on, more mana rocks of course, with Dungeon Map, Seer's Lantern, and Hierophant's Chalice. Each of these again costs 3, and Dungeon Map can tap for a color, so we can pay 3 and tap it to venture into the dungeon, only as a sorcery. So if we've got some extra mana lying around, we've got a couple of good options with this. Next up, Seer's Lantern can either tap for a color, so we can pay 2 and tap it to scry 1, so again, some great card selection. And then Hierophant's Chalice can also tap for a color, but when it also enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life, and we gain 1 life. So just a nice additional benefit on our mana rock. But now let's talk about cards like Ward of the Wall, Unstable Obelisk, and Component Pouch. Ward of the Wall enters the battlefield tapped, can tap for a colorless, and if it's not our turn, it's going to be a 2/3 Gargoyle artifact creature with flying, so it can be a decent blocker for us. And then Unstable Obelisk can tap for a color, so we can pay 7 to tap and sacrifice to destroy target permanent. So this can be huge for removal in the right situation. But next up, we've got Component Pouch, which can help us out in a different way. We can tap it to roll a d20, and by getting a 1 through 9, we get 1 component counter on it, and if we get a 10 through 20, we get 2 of those counters on it instead. Then by tapping it to remove a component counter from it, we get 2 mana of different colors. So we can start to store up component counters for a good amount of mana. Speaking of which, we've got Sisei's Ring, which is a very efficient mana rock. It costs 4 mana, it can tap for 2. Also at 4 mana, we've got Paradise Plume, which says, as it enters the battlefield, choose a color. Whenever a player casts a spell of the chosen color, you may gain 1 life, and it can also tap to add 1 mana of the chosen color. So this can give us some nice incremental life gain throughout the game. And finally, we've got Meteorite, which costs 5, but when it enters the battlefield, it's going to deal 2 damage to any target, and it can tap for 1 mana of any color. So this can be great to take out something small or ping someone in the face. But again, like I said, we want to make sure that we can get our commander out quickly, and also if our commander gets dealt with, we can get our commander out again pretty quickly, so we're not done with our ramp just yet. So we've got some mana dorks that can help us out as well with cards like Exuberant Firestoker and Elena Kessig Trapper. Exuberant Firestoker is a 1/1 that says at the end of your turn, if you control a creature with power 5 or greater, you may have Exuberant Firestoker deal 2 damage to target player, and it can tap for a colorless. So obviously our commander meets this requirement, so we can just start pinging players in the face. Next up, Elena Kessig Trapper is a 4/3 human scout with first strike that has tap and amount of red equal to the greatest power among creatures you control that enter the battlefield this turn. So even just considering our commander entering the battlefield, that is a lot of mana to get back, and of course, obviously, with our commander, we can also cast some pretty massive creatures off the top of library, so yeah, this can tap for a ton of mana. Next up, how about for Boding Statue, a 1/2 construct that can tap for 1 mana of any color, and when we do, we get an Omen counter on it. Then at the beginning of our end step, if there are 3 or more Omen counters on it, we untap it and transform it, and it turns into Forsaken Thresher, a 5/5 that says beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add 1 mana of any color. So this mana dork can actually turn into a decent sized threat that can also just generate us mana throughout the game. And finally, we also have some other creatures that can help us make mana in other ways. Soulbright Flamekin says pay 2, target creature gains trample until end of turn. If this is the 3rd time this ability has resolved this turn, you may add red, 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 or in other words, 8 red to your mana pool. So first up, giving Atali trample, yeah, we'll take that, but on top of that, obviously if we activate this 3 times, which will be 6 mana in total, we gain 2 mana. And speaking of 2 mana, there's Catalyst Elemental, which says sacrifice it, add red, red. This can be an especially effective way at getting our commander out very quickly. I mean, even just playing this on turn 3, next turn, as long as we hit our land drop, we are going to be getting our commander out. Speaking of which, there's Grinning Ignis, a 2/2 elemental that has pay a red, return Grinning Ignis to its owner's hand, add colorless, red, activate only as a sorcery. So again, this is a great way to get a temporary boost of mana. Now you might think we're done with mana, but we're not quite done with it just yet. Because we also have some ways to make treasures, and let's start with cards like Improvised Weaponry and Involuntary Employment. Improvised Weaponry is going to deal 2 damage to any target and we get a treasure token. And then Involuntary Employment is going to gain control of target creature until end of turn, untap that creature, gains haste until end of turn, create a treasure token. So obviously with these, we can either take out a small target or take a creature temporarily, but regardless, each of them are going to help temporarily ramp us by giving us a treasure token. And that can be just the boost that we need to either get our commander out or back out. So we've also got some creatures that can help us out with this with Gleaming Barrier and Riveteer's Requisitioner. Gleaming Barrier is a 0/4 with Defender that says when it dies, create a treasure token. And Riveteer's Requisitioner is a 3/1 that has when it dies, we get a treasure token, and we can also blitz it out for 2 in a red. So yeah, blitzing it might be a great option just to be able to get it out right away and to ensure that it's going to die, and on top of that, again, we get to draw a card when it dies. And finally, when it comes to treasures, we also have some other ways to make them with Exhibition Magician, which is a fun name to say, Brazen Freebooter, and Gilded Pinions. Exhibition Magician is a 2/1 that has when it enters battlefield, choose 1, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token, or create a treasure token. Brazen Freebooter is a 3/3 that doesn't give us an option, but still, when it enters battlefield, create a treasure token. And then Gilded Pinions is an equipment that says equip creature has flying, and when this enters the battlefield, we get a treasure token. So again, temporarily ramping us is great, and of course on top of that, giving our commander flying can be huge. And of course, this isn't the only way to suit up our commander. So we're also going to be utilizing cards like Cliffhaven Kitesail, Wings of Hubris, and Cobbled Wings. Cliffhaven Kitesail says when enters battlefield, attached target creature you control, equipped creature has flying. Wings of Hubris says equipped creature has flying, and by sacrificing it, equipped creature can't be blocked this turn, sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. And then Cobbled Wings simply says equipped creature has flying. Regardless of which one of these we have attached to our commander, again, each of them can be incredibly effective. To get our commander's powerful trigger, we have to swing with it, and by giving it flying, that is a fantastic form of evasion, which can usually help protect it in combat or help get it through in combat. So we're also going to be running Fleet Feather Sandals, which says equipped creature has flying and haste. So again, even if our commander is dealt with, obviously we've got a ton of ramp in this deck, which we already went over, so yeah, we can just recast our commander and get something like this attached to it so we can swing right away with again. But of course, this isn't the only way that we've got to give our commander haste. We're also going to be running Boots of Speed and Crystal Slipper. Each of these essentially do the exact same thing. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and haste. So we can hit harder, which is nice, and yeah, that turns our commander into a 3-shot KO, but more importantly, haste, swinging quicker. Yeah, that's very powerful with Atali. So of course, we're not done with haste just yet. Strider Harness is going to give equipped creature +1/+1 and haste. Ring of Valkis says equipped creature has haste in the beginning of your upkeep. Put a +1 counter on equipped creature if it's red, which obviously Atali is. So yeah, this can grow Atali quite a bit throughout the game. And then Haunted Cloak says equipped creature has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. And yeah, being able to swing while keeping our commander back can be huge, and of course Trample can help get extra damage through. So overall, a very fantastic card to suit our commander up with. Next up, we also have an aura that can help us out as well with Racecourse Fury. It says Enchanted Land has tap, target creature gains haste until end of turn. And we also have some other ways to get our commander through with cards like Suspicious Bookcase and Executioner's Hood. Suspicious Bookcase is a 0/4 defender that has pay 3, tap, target creature can't be blocked this turn. And then Executioner's Hood says equip 2, equipped creature has Intimidate, which essentially means that our commander can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or red creatures. So typically, at least on one player, we're going to be able to get our commander through with this. Now, as good as all these cards are, in my opinion, there's still one card that stands above the rest, and that is going to be the Golden Pig of this deck. And the Golden Pig, the #1 card out of our 99, is Explorer's Scope. It's an equipment that costs 1, and it costs 1 to equip, and it says whenever equipped creature attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. Now, this card is very simple, but also very effective with this commander. Again, we get our commander's effect through an attack trigger, and with this also being an attack trigger, we can choose how to stack them. So we're going to have Explorer's Scope happen first so that we can look at the top card of our library. If it's a land, it's going to go right into the battlefield again, tapped, but still, it is effective ramp for this deck. And of course, again, with that card being a land, it would have been a dead card to get off the top with our commander, which just lets us cast cards off the top, not play lands. So it removes that dead card, and now we've got a chance to hit something much better that we can then cast for free. So yeah, this card does a lot for this deck, and it can really help us not only ramp, but also not whiff nearly as much, and yeah, that's what makes it the Golden Pig. But how are we actually going to get to all these great cards? So now let's talk about some ways to draw cards with cards like Tormenting Voice, Electric Revelation, and Honor the God Pharaoh. Each of these are going to have us discard 1 card to draw 2. Electric Revelation also can be flashback for 3 and a red, and Honor the God Pharaoh on top of that is also going to have us amass 1, so we make an army token. Regardless, again, the main thing we care about is discarding 1 card to draw 2. Speaking of which, we've also got Fast and Furious, and Fast says discard a card, draw 2. Furious says deals 3 damage to each creature without flying. So we can either utilize this for card advantage, or again, if we need to wipe some things out, we can. Next up, Faithless Savaging says discard a card, then draw a card, and it's got rebound, so we get to cast it again for free at the beginning of the next upkeep. And then Into the Night says it becomes night, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards, plus 1. So this can be a great way to wheel away our hand if we don't like it. And we can actually just refill our entire hand, though, with something like Sandstone Oracle. It's a 4/4, and when it enters the battlefield, we choose an opponent. If that player has more cards in hand than us, we draw cards equal to the difference. Next up, Humble Defector can also have an opponent help us out. It's a 2/1 human rogue that has tap, draw 2 cards, target opponent gains control of Humble Defector, activate this ability only during your turn. So with this, hopefully we can make a deal with an opponent to pass this back and forth between the two of us so we can keep each drawing cards. But yet another creature that can help us out is Rummaging Goblin, which has tap, discard a card, draw a card. So again, some great repeatable card selection. We also have some ways to gain temporary card advantage with cards like Unlucky Witness, Furious Rise, and Outpost Siege. Unlucky Witness is a 1/1, and when it dies, we exile the top 2 cards of our library until our next end step, we can play one of those cards. Moving on, Furious Rise says, beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, exile the top card of your library, you may play that card until you exile another card with Furious Rise. So obviously our commander helps us meet that requirement. And then Outpost Siege says, when it enters battlefield, choose cons or dragons. If we choose cons at the beginning of our upkeep, exile the top card of our library until end of turn, we may play that card. If we choose dragons, whenever a creature we control leaves the battlefield, it's going to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. The vast majority of the time for this deck, we're probably going to want that first option, but you never know, we might hit off of our opponent's libraries. And finally, we're even going to utilize a lesson in this deck with Introduction to Prophecy, which says, scry 2, then draw a card. But now that we've talked about ways to make our plan work, let's talk about some ways to throw a wrench into our opponent's plans. So for removal, we're going to utilize cards like Abrade, Shredded Sails, and Destructive Tampering. Abrade says choose 1, it's going to deal 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. Shredded Sails is somewhat similar, it says choose 1, destroy target artifact, or it's going to deal 4 damage to target creature with flying, or we can actually cycle it away for 2. And then Destructive Tampering says choose 1, destroy target artifact, or creatures without flying can't block this turn. So this can either be removal or a great way to get our commander through in combat. Next up, we've also got Raise the Effigy, Smashing Success, and Mog Salvage. Raise the Effigy says choose 1, destroy a target artifact, or target attacking creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So again, potentially a great way to protect our commander in combat. And then Smashing Success says destroy target artifact or land. If an artifact is destroyed this way, create a treasure token. So not only can this remove something, but it can also temporarily ramp us again with that treasure. And then Mog Salvage says if an opponent controls an island and you control a mountain, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost to destroy target artifact. Again, we are definitely going to be controlling a mountain, and chances are pretty likely that at least one player will have an island, so we usually can cast this for free. And finally, for removal, we also have Meteor Golem and Introduction to Annihilation. Meteor Golem says when enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent an opponent controls. And then Introduction to Annihilation says exile target non-land permanent its controller draws a card. So yeah, either of these can be helpful in a lot of situations and can get rid of, well, pretty much anything. But now that we've talked about every single non-land card in this deck, let's talk about the price. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, this deck is on an extreme budget. Again, it's just $3 and some change with an estimated cost of $3.40. Yeah, it's hard to get more budget than that. Regardless, keep in mind that this does not include the cost of basic lands, but if you already have some mountains lying around, great, just throw them in the deck. And if not, they're very cheap to get. And keep in mind, you might be able to save even more on this deck if you buy this deck on TCG Player and utilize heavily played and damaged cards, which of course need a home too, and might be even cheaper than some of these cards just as they are. Also, keep in mind though that this estimated cost does not include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn here from you. So the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.